Bishop Green, I would like to ask you about the operation of the prophetic. So many alleged prophets appear to be getting it wrong. And is it the case, or am I missing something? How does the current ministry of the prophetic line up with Scripture?
Rarely does it line up well, unfortunately. I mean, not to be flippant about it, but there's so much nonsense right now. Nonsense may not even do justice to it. There's so much grievous failure around this because it brings disrepute on the Spirit and on the gifts of the Spirit and on the church. So this is something that strikes close to home for me. I mean, I grieve so much of what I see and how glib people are about those failures. It should be a staggeringly painful thing for us, for people to claim that God has said when God has not said, And of course, we want to be forgiving people. We want to be able to leave room for people who are learning to walk in the power of the Spirit to get it wrong. So I don't mean that we should, be too rigorous in our reactions. And I'm not calling for the stoning of false prophets. But I am saying false prophecy is something we have to take very, very seriously. And that's how I hear your question, that it's a very serious.
So for some of us, we just moved away. Mm-hmm. Some of us have fallen into the error and arguably don't recognize it until we suffer from it. Yes. And then on the other error is we've just walked away and don't want to deal with it. Mm-hmm. But we serve a supernatural God who speaks to us both through His written word and indeed through those rhema moments spoken. Sure. Does the fivefold ministry gather among us? How do we bring an element of correction, but also how do we bring an element of release so that the Spirit would have free reign among us?
A few things. I think one is to recognize that, and this is old wisdom, this is in no way something I've come up with, but to think of those rhema words, the prophetic utterances, as quickenings of what has already been revealed in Scripture. Mm-hmm. So that nothing is going to be quickened to you or to me that's not already revealed canonically. I think that's an old wisdom, but it's a good one, because it reminds us that if prophet X or Y or Z is spouting off about something that's just entirely new, is not seen in Scripture at all, it can't be right. It can't be right.
It cannot be right.
It cannot be right, because the Spirit's not going to contradict the Spirit. And if the same Spirit that has inspired that text that we've been reading is inspiring this person, it'll be the same word. Mm. And the way we'll know it, recognize it as the same word, is that it'll be a witness to Jesus. The spirit of prophecy is a testimony of Jesus. It's witnessing to Him in His fullness, to Him as the crucified and risen one. So much of what's called prophecy today, I would say, is not really prophecy. It's one of two things. It's prediction about future events, which is not identical with prophecy. And most often, it's a kind of uttering from the unconscious rather than from the divine. Wow. So a lot of what gets called prophecy is really just people letting themselves say whatever comes up when they're not controlling their thoughts. But that's just flying by the seat of your pants. That's not moving by the Spirit. And in circles where we are open to surprise, and this is one of the things that I think marks Pentecostal charismatic spirituality, is we are open to surprise. We want to be open to what God does that we're not expecting. And that's wonderful. I cherish that about our tradition. But we can get addicted to being caught off guard. We can be addicted to the novel. And I think it's one thing to be open to the surprise of the Spirit. It's another thing every service to expect something unexpected to happen. I mean, at some point that becomes a kind of trick we're playing on ourselves. So I think genuine prophecy is not just me saying things that well up from my heart. Genuine prophecy is an utterance from the Lord. And it is marked by its resonance with Scripture, by its clear resemblance to the way of Jesus. This looks like Jesus. This smells like Jesus. This calls us to live in ways that are like Jesus. And it doesn't so much predict the future as require me to live in the present in ways that are Christ-like. So a genuine prophetic word doesn't tell me what's going to happen. It tells me what God has said about me so that I can live toward that future in ways that are true to Him. Prophetic words, and I've received many in my life, Like I've gotten to the place that most of the time I can tell pretty quickly. Not always. I mean, and there's always room for discernment. But most of the time I can tell pretty quickly the difference between someone now is sharing with me something they feel, and this is the Lord speaking to me. And one of the ways is it something that's making my own obedience possible or not?
Wow.
A prophetic word makes it clear to me how my obedience comes.
So how do you, as a bishop within your denomination, how do you speak with fellow elders to bring both release of those divine moments and also curbing the excesses?
Yeah, I think some of it is we just have to be grown-ups about it. We just have to be willing to say, I'm sensing this, I think this is the Spirit, now let's discern it together. We have to leave room for people to say, yeah, I'm not hearing that. You know, like one of the marks that should always tell us that this is false is someone who says what they're saying is unquestionable. If I prophesy and then immediately follow that with, how dare you question me, I'm a prophet, I've done you the service of making it clear to you I'm not really a prophet. I mean, I've saved you the trouble of having to discern, because my arrogance is contradicting the Spirit. It's grieving and quenching the Spirit. Of course, the Spirit is fully trustworthy, but I'm not asking you to trust me. If I'm speaking on behalf of the Spirit, if I truly am prophesying, then what you're hearing is not my authority, but the authority of God. You'll recognize it because it's summoning your obedience to God, not to me.